corn syrup, Roundup weed killer residue, and foreign sugars at 3 times the international limit. All found in honey brands Americans have trusted for generations. But open the wrong jar, and what you're stirring into your tea is ultra-filtered syrup stripped of all pollen. So no lab can prove it was ever honey. If you've been buying the same brand for 10, 20, 30 years, that's what's been on your table. I'm counting down 12 to throw out an 8 that earned your trust, based on FDA data, European Commission findings, and federal lawsuits. Starting with the brand your grandmother would be the most upset about. Number 12. Store brand drugstore honey. If you have ever grabbed a jar of honey from the shelf at CVS or Walgreens because it was convenient and cheap, you are not alone. Millions of Americans do the same thing every week. These generic store brand honeys are almost always ultra-filtered, which means the manufacturer pushes the honey through a process so aggressive that it strips out every trace of pollen. And pollen is the one thing that lets a lab trace where honey actually came from. Without pollen, nobody can tell if that jar started in a clover field in Montana or in a factory in southern China. The FDA defines honey as a single ingredient food, but without pollen, there is no reliable way to verify what is inside. A 2011 investigation by Food Safety News sent store-brand honeys to labs and found that more than 3/4 of the samples had all their pollen removed. Your grandmother would have called that sugar water with a nice label. These bottles typically cost $3 to $4. And at that price point, the economics of real honey simply do not work. If it costs less than $6 a pound, ask yourself how a beekeeper could afford to produce it. Number 11. Good and Gather. This is Target's house brand, and it sits right next to the name brand jars with a friendlier price tag. The label says honey, the packaging looks clean, and the branding suggests a company that cares about what goes into your food. The reality is less reassuring. Good and Gather honey has been flagged by independent reviewers and honey industry watchdogs for the same ultrafiltration issues that plague most store brands. When investigators tested store brand honeys from major retailers, including Target, in that same Food Safety News investigation, the samples consistently came back with no traceable pollen. Target has never publicly disclosed the specific sourcing or processing standards for its Good and Gather honey line. That silence is the problem. When a company will not tell you where their honey comes from or how it is processed, that is not modesty, it is strategy. A jar of Good and Gather honey runs about $5. A jar of verified raw honey from a known beekeeper costs closer to $12. That price gap is not explained by clever supply chain management. It is explained by what is not in the jar. Number 10. Busy Bee. The brand has been around since the 1950s and sells honey in the familiar Squeeze Bear bottle that most Americans grew up with. Your mother probably had one in the cupboard. But Busy Bee has been consistently criticized by industry analysts for its reliance on ultrafiltration and for blending honey from international imports of unknown origin. The label typically says something vague like product of multiple countries, which is the food industry's polite way of saying we bought the cheapest barrels we could find and mixed them together. When honey from different continents gets blended into a single bottle, any claim of purity becomes almost impossible to verify. Busy Bee honey is clear, smooth, and pours like syrup. Real raw honey is none of those things. It crystallizes. It looks cloudy. It sometimes has visible flecks of wax or propolis. That is how your grandmother's honey looked because that is what actual honey does. Busy Bee's perfectly smooth golden product should make you wonder what was done to it before it reached your table. Number 9. Golden Blossom. This brand has marketed itself as a premium honey for decades. The packaging is elegant, the price is higher than the generic brands, and the name itself sounds like something from a country meadow. But Golden Blossom is a pasteurized, filtered honey product, and those two words together should give you pause. Pasteurization means heating honey to temperatures that kill the beneficial enzymes and break down the amino acids that make raw honey valuable in the first place. Filtering removes the pollen that proves the honey is genuine. So what you are paying a premium for is essentially a product that has had its two most important qualities removed. Independent reviewers and honey experts have repeatedly flagged Golden Blossom as a brand that charges more while delivering less. The brand has never faced a formal lawsuit, but the gap between what Golden Blossom implies on its label and what its processing methods actually deliver is wide enough to drive a truck through. If you are spending $8 or $9 on a jar of honey, you deserve something that has not been cooked and stripped before it reaches you. If you are finding this useful, take a second to hit that subscribe button. We cover investigations like this every week, and if you are watching this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel is for. Now, back to the list. Number 8. Kroger brand honey. Kroger is the largest grocery chain in the United States, and its private label honey is on shelves in thousands of stores across the country. In 2021, a group of commercial beekeepers, including Golden Prairie Honey Farms, AD Honey Farms, and Henry's Bullfrog Bees, filed a class action lawsuit alleging that major retailers, including Kroger, were refusing to pay fair prices for genuine honey because cheap, adulterated imports had driven prices through the floor. The beekeepers claimed they could not break even. AD Honey Farms, one of the largest operations in the country, reported storing over 6 million pounds of honey it simply could not sell. Kroger was not accused of adding corn syrup to its own brand, but the lawsuit painted a picture of a retailer that chose the cheapest option available, regardless of where that honey actually came from. The U.S. imported 429 million pounds of honey in 2023, representing almost 3/4 of total supply. At that volume, the temptation to accept barrels of questionable origin is not a theory. It is a business model. Number 7. Honey Queen. This brand was sold at Costco and carried the kind of name that sounds wholesome and straightforward. But in 2023, Honey Queen was named directly in class action filings that accused multiple honey brands of selling products diluted with corn syrup, rice syrup, or beet sugar. The plaintiffs argued that labels claiming pure honey were deceptive when the products contained undeclared sweeteners. Honey Queen's inclusion in these lawsuits raised serious questions about Costco's vetting of the brands it puts on its shelves. When you shop at Costco, you expect a certain standard, and finding out that one of the honey brands in their warehouse was named in a fraud-related lawsuit undermines that trust. The core accusation was straightforward. The honey's natural sugar ratio, the balance between fructose and glucose, was altered in ways consistent with the addition of cheaper syrups. You cannot taste that difference at home. It takes lab equipment to catch it, and that is exactly what makes honey fraud so effective and so difficult for regular shoppers to detect. Number 6. Glory Bee. Glory Bee is an Oregon-based company that has been in business since 1975 and has built a reputation around sustainability and organic products, which makes it all the more surprising that Glory Bee was named in the 2023 class action lawsuits alongside Sue Bee and Nature Nates. The allegations centered on honey products that were claimed to be pure but allegedly contained added sweeteners that lab tests detected. Glory Bee has maintained its position that its products meet industry standards, but the very fact of being named in legal proceedings puts a company's credibility under a microscope. For a brand that charges a premium and markets itself on trust, that is a problem that does not go away with a press release. Glory Bee does offer a USDA organic raw option that sources from traceable apiaries, and that specific product may well be legitimate. But the broader Glory Bee honey line, which includes conventional and blended varieties, carries the shadow of those legal questions. Read the label carefully. Not every product with the same brand name is made the same way. Number 5. Kirkland Signature Local Honey. Costco members trust the Kirkland brand, and for good reason. Kirkland products are usually solid value, but the Kirkland Signature Local Honey ran into a problem that Costco itself had to acknowledge publicly. The honey was temporarily pulled from shelves and relabeled after it came to light that the vendor, either Local Hive or Honey Tree depending on the product line, had misrepresented its manufacturing process. The word local on a honey jar carries a specific meaning to anyone buying it. It means the honey came from bees near you, working flowers in your region. Independent reviewers who tested the Kirkland local blends found that the sourcing did not match what the label implied. Costco, to its credit, took action and is working to hold its vendors accountable. But the fact remains that for a period of time, customers were paying for local honey and getting something else entirely. If one of the most rigorous retailers in America got fooled by its own supplier, imagine what is happening at stores with far less oversight. Number 4. Aunt Sue's. Aunt Sue's is made by the Sioux Honey Association, which is a cooperative of beekeepers based in Sioux City, Iowa, founded in 1921. The brand sounds like it was named after somebody's actual aunt, the kind of woman who kept bees in the backyard and put up jars for the neighbors. But lawsuits have challenged the labeling claims on Aunt Sue's products. Legal filings allege that testing found glyphosate residue in honey products labeled as 100% pure, and natural. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in the weed killer Roundup, and while traces of it can end up in honey through environmental exposure, the combination of pesticide residue and purity claims on the same label is a credibility problem. The lawsuits argued that consumers who chose Aunt Sue's over cheaper alternatives did so because they believed the pure and natural claims meant something specific. If those words are just marketing language that does not correspond to what is inside the jar, then the higher price is not buying you quality. It is buying you a story. Number 3. Nature Nates. This is the one that stings, because Nature Nates has spent years building a brand around transparency. The label says 100% pure, raw, and unfiltered. The company's own website once stated, and I quote, that no antibiotics, pesticides, herbicides, or added corn or rice syrup get past them. Then came the 2023 class action lawsuit. Lab testing allegedly revealed that syrups had been added to Nature Nates honey. The lawsuit filed against the company accused it of selling premium-priced honey that was not what it claimed to be. Nature Nates charges around $8 for a 16-ounce bottle, which is significantly more than generic store brands. Consumers paid that premium specifically because they believe the raw and unfiltered promise. Whether the adulteration happened at Nature Nates' facility or somewhere in the supply chain is still in dispute, but the lawsuit made clear that the product reaching store shelves did not match the words on the label. When you charge more for trust and the trust breaks, the price is not just financial. Number 2. Sue Bee. Sue Bee is the flagship brand of the Sioux Honey Association, the same cooperative behind Aunt Sue's. At one point, Grove Farms, one of America's largest honey packers, was processing and distributing enormous volumes of honey that ended up on store shelves under various labels. In 2013, the Department of Justice accused Grove Farms and a company called Honey Holding of evading $180 million in tariffs by importing mislabeled Chinese honey through intermediary countries. Grove Farms paid a $2 million fine and filed for bankruptcy. Sue Bee was named in the 2023 class action lawsuits alleging adulteration with corn syrup. The brand has long been criticized for extensive ultrafiltration that removes all pollen, making the honey untraceable. For a cooperative that was originally founded by actual beekeepers in Iowa, that is a long way from the front porch. Sue Bee accounts for a significant share of the processed honey market in the United States. When a brand that large cuts corners, it does not just affect consumers. It drives down prices for every honest beekeeper in the country who is trying to sell the real thing. Number 1. Great Value Raw Honey and Great Value Organic Raw Honey. Both are sold by Walmart, and both were the subject of a class action lawsuit filed in October 2023 in Illinois federal court. The lawsuit alleged that Walmart's Great Value Raw Honey was excessively heated during processing, to the point that beneficial enzymes were destroyed and the product could no longer be considered raw. Lab testing measured the honey's HMF levels, which is a chemical marker that rises when honey is overheated. The results indicated temperatures well above the 105-degree threshold where raw honey stops being raw. For the organic raw honey, the lawsuit went further. Testing found that the mannose concentration was 3 times higher than the international standard. Mannose levels above 0.02 grams per 100 grams indicate that foreign sugars have been added. 3 times that standard is not a rounding error. It is a red flag. Walmart sells more groceries than any other company in America. Millions of families buy Great Value honey every month because the label says raw and organic and the price feels right. When the biggest retailer in the country puts those words on a jar and the lab results say otherwise, that is not a labeling dispute. That is a breach of trust on a national scale. Now here are the 8 brands that passed. These are the honeys I would actually put on my own table. Number 8. Fischer's Honey. Fischer's sells raw, unfiltered, unpasteurized honey that is sourced exclusively from American beekeepers. The company has built a following among people who pay attention to what is on the ingredient list, and that ingredient list says one word: honey. Fischer's does not blend from international sources or ultra-filter its product. What comes out of the hive is close to what goes into the bottle. The honey crystallizes over time, which some consumers mistake for a defect, but is actually one of the strongest indicators that you are looking at unprocessed, genuine honey. Fischer's is widely available on Amazon and in select grocery stores, and a 40-ounce bottle runs around $12 to $14. That is a fair price for real honey. Fischer's is not fancy and does not pretend to be. It is honest honey from a company that has not been named in any adulteration lawsuits or consumer fraud complaints. For everyday use, drizzling on toast, stirring into tea, or baking, it does exactly what honey is supposed to do. Number 7. Wedderspoon Raw Manuka Honey. Wedderspoon sources its Manuka honey from the forests of New Zealand and uses a grading system called K-factor to verify authenticity. K-factor measures pollen count and other markers that confirm you are getting real Manuka, not a blend diluted with cheaper honey. Every jar is non-GMO project, verified and certified kosher. Wedderspoon does not pasteurize its honey, so the enzymes and beneficial compounds that give Manuka its reputation remain intact. A jar of Wedderspoon runs around $45 to $55 for about 18 ounces, which is steep by any measure. But genuine Manuka honey has always been inexpensive because the Manuka bush blooms for a short window each year and only in specific parts of New Zealand. If someone is selling you Manuka honey for $10, it is not Manuka honey. Wedderspoon has earned a 4.8 out of 5 rating across thousands of consumer reviews, and its honey drops with echinacea have become a bestseller in the wellness category. If you are using honey for its health properties rather than just as a sweetener, Wedderspoon is one of the most trustworthy names you will find. Number 6. Bee Harmony by Savannah Bee Company. Savannah Bee Company is based in Savannah, Georgia, and has been in the honey business for over 2 decades. Their Bee Harmony line offers single-origin raw honeys sourced from apiaries in the southeastern United States, and each jar identifies the specific floral source. That matters because it means the honey is traceable. You can look at the label and know that the honey came from tupelo blossoms along the Apalachicola River in the Florida Panhandle or from wildflowers in the Georgia Lowcountry. Savannah Bee's Tupelo honey is considered the benchmark for premium American honey. Tupelo honey is naturally resistant to crystallization and has a distinctive buttery sweetness you recognize the moment it hits your tongue. It runs $35 to $45 a pound, which puts it in the luxury category. But you are paying for a product that a beekeeper can stand behind by name, from a region you can point to on a map. Savannah Bee Company has never faced adulteration lawsuits, and their commitment to naming the source on every jar is the opposite of the product of multiple countries' vagueness that plagues the industry. Number 5. Desert Creek Honey. Desert Creek is a family-owned operation in Texas that sells raw honey direct from its own hives. There is no middleman, no international blending, and no mystery sourcing. The bees work Texas wildflowers, and the honey goes from hive to bottle with minimal processing. Desert Creek has built a loyal following through farmers' market presence and direct online sales, and the family behind the company is transparent about their beekeeping practices. They do not use chemicals in their hives, and the honey is never heated above hive temperature, which is about 95 degrees. A jar of Desert Creek honey has an amber color that shifts with the seasons because the flowers the bees visit change throughout the year. That natural variation is a sign of authenticity. Factory-processed honey looks exactly the same jar after jar because it has been blended and standardized. Desert Creek honey looks different every time because it is real. If you are in Texas, you might find it at a local market. Otherwise, they ship direct. The price is fair, usually in the range of $12 to $18 per pound. Number 4. Whole Foods 365 Organic Raw Wildflower Honey. Not all store brands are created equal, and Whole Foods 365 line is proof. This particular honey is USDA certified organic, raw, and unfiltered. In taste tests conducted by The Kitchen in 2025, this honey stood out for its thick, grainy texture with crystallized bits, which testers described as incredibly luscious. That crystallization is a feature, not a flaw. It means the honey has not been overheated or ultra-filtered. Organic certification for honey is rigorous. It requires that the bees forage in areas free from pesticides and that the honey is processed without prohibited substances. The USDA does not hand out organic certification lightly, and the fact that Whole Foods 365 line carries it means the supply chain has been audited. At around $8 to $10 a jar, this is one of the most accessible, genuinely real honeys available at a mainstream grocery store. If you shop at Whole Foods anyway, this is the jar to reach for. It tastes like actual honey from actual bees, and in this market, that is saying something. Number 3. Manukora Raw Manuka Honey. Manukora takes traceability further than almost any other honey brand on the market. Every jar comes with a QR code that traces the honey back to the specific hive where it was produced. They call it hive-to-hand traceability, and it is not a marketing gimmick. The system lets you verify the batch, the apiary location, and the test results for that particular jar. Manukora's honey is UMF certified, which is the gold standard for Manuka authentication, and independently tested by third-party labs for glyphosate residue, which comes back clean. Their MGO ratings range from 50 to 850 and above, with higher ratings indicating greater concentration of the antibacterial compound that makes Manuka honey unique. A jar of Manukora at the higher end of the MGO scale will run you well over $50, which is significant. But you are paying for a product that has been tested, traced, and certified at every step from the hive to your kitchen. When so many brands cannot even tell you which country their honey came from, Manukora hands you a QR code and says look for yourself. Number 2. YS Eco Bee Farms. In 1995, YS Eco Bee Farms became the first certified organic beekeeping operation in North America. That was 30 years ago, long before organic labeling became a marketing strategy. The company has never heated its honey above hive temperature, has never ultra-filtered it, and has maintained transparent sourcing practices for 3 decades. YS Eco Bee Farms honey is raw, unfiltered, and contains the pollen, enzymes, and propolis that most commercial processing strips away. It has nearly 5,000 reviews on Amazon with a 4.7 out of 5 average, and those reviews tell a remarkably consistent story. The honey is thick, sometimes crystallized, and has a depth of flavor that processed honey cannot match. At around $10 to $14 for a jar, it is also one of the most affordable verified raw honeys available. YS does not spend heavily on marketing or packaging. The jar looks plain, the label is no frills, and the brand lets the product speak for itself. When a company has been doing the same thing the right way for 30 years and has thousands of satisfied customers to show for it, that is not advertising. That is a track record. Number 1. Your local beekeeper. This is not a brand. This is a person. Someone in your county or the next one over who tends hives, harvests honey by hand, and puts their name on the jar because their reputation depends on it. Local beekeepers sell at farmers markets, roadside stands, and small-town co-ops. Their honey has not been heated, filtered, blended, or shipped through 3 countries before reaching you. It contains pollen from the flowers in your region, which some people believe helps with seasonal allergies, though the science on that is still debated. What is not debated is the quality. Local honey crystallizes because it is real. It varies in color and flavor from season to season because the bees are working different blooms. And it costs more than the plastic bear at the supermarket because producing real honey is slow, labor-intensive work that cannot be faked at scale. A pound of local honey typically runs between $10 and $20. Depending on your area. That is more than great value, and it should be. Real things cost what they cost. Your grandmother knew that, and she would tell you the same thing. Find a beekeeper, shake their hand, buy their honey. That is the safest bet you will ever make at the grocery store. Next time you reach for a jar, flip it over. If the label does not tell you where the honey came from, put it back. Find a beekeeper. Your grandmother would approve. If you want to see what other grocery store staples are not what they claim to be, that video is right here.